One waitress, one arrogant millionaire, and a grand piano. What started as a cruel attempt to humiliate her turned into a moment that silenced the room and shattered egos. You won't believe how she turned the tables with nothing but her talent. It was a warm Friday evening at La Fontaine, an upscale restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina. The clinking of glasses, the soft footsteps of servers, and the faint strains of jazz from a corner piano created an ambience of refined indulgence. Deborah, a 25-year-old waitress with a quiet demeanor and an unmistakable spark in her eyes, moved swiftly between tables, balancing plates and smiles. Deborah's passion wasn't serving tables, it was music. Ever since childhood, the piano had been her refuge. But dreams don't pay the bills. Working at La Fontaine was a necessity, a stepping stone toward the music academy she longed to attend. Few knew about her talent except for the restaurant staff, who occasionally caught her stealing moments at the old, upright piano in the back room during breaks. That night, as the evening rush settled, the door swung open, and in walked Leonard Grayson, wealthy, arrogant, and known for his sharp tongue. His presence made even the most seasoned staff stand straighter. Deborah's colleagues exchanged knowing glances. Leonard thrived on pushing people's buttons. As Leonard scanned the room, his gaze landed on Deborah. Something about her caught his attention. A smirk played on his lips as he watched her move between tables. When she approached his table, he spoke loudly enough for others to hear. "Deborah, huh? Sounds like someone with hidden talents." She forced a polite smile, placing their orders. But Leonard wasn't done. He thrived on spectacle and had already decided she would be the evening's entertainment. "Tell me, Deborah," he said as she poured wine, "what do you do when you're not carrying plates? Surely a young woman like you has dreams." "I play piano sometimes," she said softly, hoping to keep it brief. Leonard's smirk widened. "A pianist, huh? Why don't you give us a little performance?" Deborah froze. The room quieted, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "Oh, I couldn't," she said quickly, forcing a nervous laugh. "I'm just here to work tonight." "Nonsense," Leonard declared, his voice booming. "There's a piano right there. Show us what you've got." His companions chuckled, clearly enjoying the show. Other diners turned their heads. Deborah's chest tightened. She wanted to say no, but Leonard's challenge dared her to rise or crumble under its weight. "I really shouldn't," she stammered, glancing around for support. But even her colleagues hesitated to intervene. Leonard leaned back, smirking. "Ah, I see. All talk, no talent. That's disappointing." The words hit like a slap. Deborah's hands clenched. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Never let anyone make you small, Deborah. You are bigger than they'll ever know." A moment of silence stretched between them. Deborah glanced at the piano, then at Leonard. His smug expression dared her to take the bait. And against her better judgment, she did. "Fine," she said, her voice steady. "I'll play." The dining room seemed to hold its breath as Deborah approached the grand piano. The chandelier's soft glow cast a spotlight on her. Her fingers trembled as she slid onto the bench, the polished keys gleaming like a challenge. The first notes were soft, hesitant. A few diners shifted in their seats. But Deborah ignored them, her focus sharpening. She chose Claire de Lune, a piece she knew by heart. The melody spilled into the room, weaving through the air like a delicate thread. As her confidence grew, the music swelled. Her hands moved with grace, the notes pouring out like a confession. Each chord carried a piece of her story. The sacrifices her mother made, the nights spent practicing in a cramped room, the weight of dreams deferred but never abandoned. The diners fell silent. Even Leonard, who had been whispering to his companions, went quiet. The mocking energy had dissipated. The music soared, and for the first time in years, Deborah let herself go. She wasn't a waitress or a struggling dreamer. She was an artist. As she struck the final chord, the room was utterly still. Then, the applause erupted, thunderous and reverberating. Some diners stood, clapping with a fervor that brought tears to her eyes. Her co-workers joined in, their faces lit with pride. Leonard, however, remained seated. His smirk was gone, replaced by an expression Deborah couldn't quite decipher. Shock, discomfort. He raised his hands and clapped slowly, but even his applause couldn't overshadow what had just happened. Deborah had reclaimed her voice, and no amount of condescension could take that away. As the applause faded, Deborah stood, her knees trembling but her back straight. She didn't look at Leonard right away. Instead, she nodded to the diners who had clapped the loudest, offering a faint smile. It wasn't pride she felt, but relief that she hadn't let fear silence her. But then, as though magnetized, her gaze shifted to Leonard. His usual confidence was nowhere to be seen. "Well," Leonard finally said, his voice louder than necessary. "That was unexpected." He chuckled, though it lacked its usual bravado. "I suppose talent really does come from the most surprising places." His companions exchanged awkward glances. Deborah tilted her head, studying him. His words were meant as an olive branch, but they were hollow. "Thank you," she said, her tone steady. No warmth, no hostility, just finality. Leonard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "You've got quite a gift," he added, almost begrudgingly. Deborah nodded. "Everyone has a gift," she said. "It's how you choose to use it that matters." The subtle sting of her words rippled through the air. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Leonard's entourage, who had laughed at her expense earlier, now avoided eye contact. The bravado that once filled their table had evaporated, leaving only an awkward silence. As the night continued, patrons stopped to offer Deborah kind words. "You were incredible," an older woman said softly. "I don't think I've ever heard anything so moving." "Keep going," another added. "You've got something special." Deborah thanked them, her heart swelling. These weren't just compliments. They were validations of everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed of becoming. Leonard, however, was not so gracious. As Deborah delivered his check, he looked up, torn between annoyance and reluctant admiration. "You've made your point," he muttered. "No need to rub it in." Deborah met his gaze directly. "It was never about proving anything to you," she said calmly. "I just wanted to play." Leonard had no response. He fidgeted with his drink. The power he once wielded was gone. One of his companions, a younger man with a softer demeanor, looked at Deborah and said, "You were amazing." "Truly." Deborah smiled. "Thank you." As Leonard's group left, their usual grand exit was replaced by a quiet retreat. Deborah watched them go, feeling neither triumph nor bitterness. She wasn't thinking about Leonard anymore. Her mind was on the future. That night's tips were unusually generous, enough to cover rent and finally afford the piano lesson she had postponed. As she locked up and walked home, Deborah felt something she hadn't felt in years: certainty. She wasn't just a waitress or a dreamer. She was an artist. And nothing, not condescension, not financial struggles, not fear, could take that away from her.